There once was a place in America where the American dream was black, a place of dignity, prosperity, and peace, where a child could dream of becoming a doctor, a mother could own a shop, and a family could walk home without fear. They called it Greenwood. Others called it Black Wall Street. But in June 1921, it became something else at Target. What happened in Tulsa wasn't a riot. It was a massacre, and for nearly a century, America looked away. Today, we tell the story of Greenwood not to open old wounds, but to remember what was lost, and why it must never be forgotten. A city that glowed before the flames. June 1st, 1921. The morning sun rose over Tulsa, Oklahoma, spilling golden light across the rooftops of Greenwood. The streets bustled with life. Children played on sidewalks, barbershops buzzed with clippers and conversation, and the aroma of freshly baked bread drifted from family-owned cafes. Greenwood was more than a neighborhood. It was a sanctuarial place where black families could dream, build, and thrive in a nation that so often told them they could not. This was Black Wall Street, a beacon of black prosperity in early 20th century America. Doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, and teachers walked its avenues. There were theaters, hotels, libraries, and restaurants, all owned and operated by black residents. Money circulated within the community dozens of times before leaving it. In Greenwood, black excellence wasn't an exception, it was the norm. At night, the city glowed. Electric lights, rare for most parts of America in the 1920s, lit up Greenwood's avenues. Jazz spilled from clubs onto moonlit streets. Men and women dressed in finery strolled beneath the glow of street. It was a dream made real, but beyond its borders, resentments across the tracks in white Tulsa. Some looked at Greenwood not with admiration, but with envy. They saw affluence where they expected poverty. They saw pride where they had enforced humiliation. And deep within the bones of a segregated society, a question grew poisonous. How dare they? The birth of Greenwood. Black Wall Street Greenwood was born from trauma, carved from the consequences of slavery and the search for safety. After the Civil War, freed black Americans spread out across the country, looking for new beginnings. Many came to Oklahoma, drawn by the promise of land and relative freedom. Some had even been enslaved by Native American tribes and were given land rights after emancipation. In Tulsa, a visionary black man named O.W. Gurley saw potential in the dusty, unclaimed land north of the railroad tracks. He bought 40 acres and sold plots only to black settlers. Others followed his lead, including J.B., a lawyer who built one of the largest black-owned hotels in the United States. By 1921, Greenwood was thriving. Its population of 10,000 supported over 200 businesses. There were 2 newspapers, 21 churches, and a hospital. Black children received a better education in Greenwood than their white counterparts in Tulsa. This wasn't just a community. It was a model of what black America could achieve when left alone to flourish. But America rarely let black success go unpunished. American Apartheid. The world outside Tulsa Greenwood's rise came during an age of terror for black Americans. The 1910s and 1920s saw thousands of lynchings across the South and Midwest. The Ku Klux Klan was resurgent. Jim Crow laws kept black citizens legally, socially, and economically apart. In Tulsa, the divide was both physical and psychological. The Frisco Railroad tracks were more than just steel, and Timberthay were a racial boundary. On one side, white Tulsa, modern and growing. On the other, Greenwood self-contained and tightly knit. White newspapers regularly inflamed tensions. Stories about black crime, real or invented, were printed with inflammatory headlines. Politicians spoke of the Negro problem, and every success in Greenwood seemed to intensify white anxiety. Black independence was seen as a threat to white supremacy. What Greenwood represented to black Americans' freedom, dignity, autonomy was exactly what white supremacists feared most. Then came May 30th, 1921.921. The spark. One elevator ride, one false story on that day. A 19-year-old black shoe shiner named Dick Rowland entered the Drexel building in downtown Tulsa to use the restroom, the only one available to black people in the area. Inside the elevator was a 17-year-old white girl, Sarah Page. What happened next remains unclear. Some say he stumbled and grabbed her arm to keep from falling. Others suggest something more sinister, but what's certain is this: Sarah screamed. A clerk heard and called the police. By the time they arrived, Rowland had fled. Page refused to press charges, but it didn't matter. The next day, the Tulsa Tribune ran a headline: "Nab Negru for attacking girl in elevator." Rumors of lynching spread like wildfire. By evening, a white mob gathered at the courthouse demanding Rowland's release. Black veterans of World War I, many of whom had fought for a democracy abroad, they were denied at home, also arrived to protect Rowland. A confrontation followed. A gun went off. Then chaos. 72 hours of fire, bullets, and silence. The riot turned into a massacre. White mobs surged into Greenwood, looting homes, setting fires, and shooting anyone in sight. Law enforcement either stood aside or joined in. Over 35 city blocks were destroyed. Planes airplanes were used to drop incendiary devices on buildings. This was perhaps the first aerial bombing of an American city by its own citizens. Families fled through the night, mothers clutching babies, elderly men stumbling through smoke-choked streets. Survivors later recalled seeing charred bodies in the road. The smell of burning flesh haunted them for the rest of their lives. By the time the National Guard arrived, it was too late. Greenwood was gone. Aftermath, ashes, silence, and insurance denials. Officially, 36 people died. Real estimates range from 100 to over 300. Thousands were left homeless. Property damage totaled more than $32 million in today's money, yet not a single insurance claim was paid. The policies all had clauses exempting riots. No one was ever convicted. The state of Oklahoma never brought charges against the rioters. Newspapers buried the story. Schools never taught it. Survivors were silenced by fear, and shame cloaked the ruins of Greenwood. For decades, the massacre was wiped from public memory. Greenwood was rebuilt by its residents without help, brick by brick. But it was never the same. The trauma endured. So did the silence. Memory in the shadows. How history forgot, it wasn't until the 1990s that the story of Greenwood re-emerged into national awareness. Survivors began to speak. Historians uncovered hidden documents. Mass graves were searched for. A truth, long buried, began to rise again. But for most Americans, the Tulsa Massacre was unknown until the 21st century. It wasn't in textbooks, it wasn't on TV. It took shows like HBO's Watchmen and pressure from activists to bring it into the light. The question remains, why did America forget? The answer is painful, because remembering Greenwood means confronting uncomfortable truths about race, violence, and inequality. It means facing a legacy still alive in housing, education, and justice systems today. Resurgence and reckoning. The long road to justice today, Greenwood stands as both a warning and a monument. Parts of it have been preserved. Museums and memorials now tell its story, but justice remains elusive. Reparations have been debated but never delivered. Survivors, now over 100 years old, still testify before Congress, asking for accountability. The story of Greenwood isn't just about what was lost, it's about what survived. Courage, resilience, memory, and the truth that even when history is buried in ash, it can still rise so long as someone remembers. Greenwood was not just a place. It was proof that in a nation built on exclusion, Black excellence could still rise. But it was also a warning that success alone does not protect you from hate. The fires of Tulsa tried to burn Greenwood from the map, but they couldn't erase memory. Today, as survivors speak out and as history reclaims its voice, we are reminded that silence is not peace, and forgetting is not healing. Greenwood still speaks. The question is, are we finally ready to listen?